Welcome to the Bible Story Podcast. My name is Braden Poich. This is John Draper, and we are very excited to have you guys here.
If you guys do us a favor, if you would please subscribe and share this podcast, that would really help others get to know this podcast, and thus they would grow in their faith with Jesus.
Yeah, he even said please, which is very nice.
I don't usually say please.
Okay, so in our first few weeks back, we have started unpacking this idea of hope, friends, and acts of love. This week, we are diving head first, feet first, full body all the way into acts of love, and we are going to unpack that here.
So don't be fooled into thinking that love is just an emotion. It is way, way more than just an emotion. And we're going to be looking at 1 John chapter 3, verses 18 through 20, which I will read now. Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Our actions will show that we belong to the truth. So we will be confident when we stand before God. Even if we feel guilty, God is greater than our feelings, and He knows everything.
Okay, so there's three really significant points to that scripture that we want to pull out and highlight for everyone today. Number one is to show acts of love, meaning tangible, real, physical ways of showing and sharing love.
And actions of love show that we belong to the truth.
Interesting. We will get more into that later. And God is greater than our emotions.
Okay, so Braden did a pretty cool thing at the end of this summer, and he invited all of us summer staff. Well, I'm not technically just seasonal.
You're staff.
But I'm staff. I showed up and I crashed the party. It was fun, but he invited us all to his place for brunch and then some games and activities after, and we had a great time together. It was a good thing. Now, it was greatly appreciated, and on behalf of all of the staff, thank you, Braden.
You're welcome.
But Braden, I'd like to ask you,
Okay.
how did this act of love that you showed impact you?
Interesting. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to maybe define fully, but let me try. I think when you invite a bunch of people into your house, my house isn't that big, and 25 people show up, and it's kind of exciting, but it's literally the day after summer camp. We've spent 8 weeks together. Some of us haven't slept very well. Some of us were not feeling great, or sickness, or whatever. And sometimes the last thing you want to do after a really long, hard time of ministry together is like spend more time together. However, the reason I believe it's important and the reason my wife and I open our house to all of the staff is because it allows us to see each other again as friends, as people, as ministry partners. We are able to finally share the things that are going to happen in September and October and November and for the rest of the year, because we can think about those things again and take a breath, because we haven't been able to for the last 8 weeks together. So it deepens our care and love for each other because we learn more about each other. We get to see a wider picture of each person's life. And so when I get to check in with people or send a text message or an email, I have more to go off of than just summer camp. I know who they are as people and care for them more because of that. So it's time spent. The laughter really washes away any animosity or maybe, frustration that we had. Reminds us that we're all in this together and we do really care for one another.
It sounds to me like after showing this love, and it's not exclusive to this particular incident or act, but you're more invested in these people.
Yeah, it's an important part of caring for people.
So when we don't just say it, but we act on the love demonstrated by Jesus, we become people whose lives line up with the truth found in Scripture. We are people who have, in short, we are people with integrity. Now, as John would say it this way, we belong to the truth.
And as we belong to this truth, as we get closer and closer to the truth, it takes away this inner turmoil or conflict that we might have. We would often know that as guilt or shame, those feelings associated with it.
Now, we're able to approach God with confidence when we are living in this love, and we're acting on the love and living in this truth.
Yeah. And by no means are we going to be perfect at this. We're going to mess up. We're going to love people in ways that it doesn't work or doesn't feel like it's gone over all that well. But in all of this, it doesn't mean that the guilt and shame, those feelings have to take over. In fact, those can be just really good indicators to point us back to Jesus, back to the love that we can act on. And John has shared that through this really important scripture.
So God is bigger than our feelings.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really important thing that we need to understand. He knows everything. He knows everything about us, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything else.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows who you want to strive to be. He knows who he designed you to be. And he knows just how much he loves you.
And as we attempt to love people and as we mess up and we sin, no matter what we do, God will forgive those things. He's already forgiven those things.
So he is greater than the guilt that you feel.
In case you missed it the first time, that is the signal for a commercial break, which we will do as right now. So our commercial break today is again a reminder that we have a youth retreat coming up November 10th to 12th. That is going to be for grades 9 to 12. It's going to be really awesome. You can register at covenantbay.ca. There will be more information in the coming weeks.
And I think last week we talked about friends as one of those points.
Yep.
This is a great opportunity to reconnect with old friends and make new friends that love Jesus like you do, and we're going to grow in a relationship with him.
Yeah. That has been your commercial break.
No, you got to do it backwards.
Oh. I just sound like a chicken. Okay, so to recap the episode and not recap my bad sound effects, show acts of love to each other that glorify God.
Ah, cool. Actions of love show that we belong to the truth.
And that God is greater than the feelings of guilt and shame and all of the feelings that we have.
All right, let's get into some questions that you can discuss with your friends. First one is this: list 3 out of the ordinary acts of love that you can do today. Hit pause and share.
Question number 2, what do you feel guilty about? And even though it's hard, share that with your friends and with God. Ask God for forgiveness. You're going to find a lot of freedom from your guilt.
Question 3. How does loving people through actions shape you? Hit pause and share.
Thank you all for listening and joining us here. It's always a pleasure to spend this time with you, to go deeper in a relationship with Jesus Christ. We love you and pray for you often.
Yes, and our act of love is prayer. And I think this podcast in some way.
I think so. We will see you all here next week. We look forward to it.
Take care.